Good news, you're here just in time. Here's another Laneway Talks.
Today on Laneway Talks, we're talking to Roger Pyke from Daniel, one of Laneway artists who we've had on the label from virtually the beginning. And we consider came with a high calibre of musicianship, and we feel sit within that Steely Dan kind of musical genre. Morning, Roger, how are you?
Good morning, Vince. I'm very well, and it's a beautiful day in Sydney, a bit cool, and I just got back from a nice warm swim in the ocean because it's warm.
Oh, well, that sounds absolutely shivering. The way we start our interviews, Roger, is we start from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
When I grew up in Newcastle. I was born in Wallsend, which is the western suburb of Newcastle. And like a lot of people in Newcastle, my dad worked in the steel business. He was a metallurgist, and he worked with all of my parents seemed to be involved somehow in that industry or coal or whatever. And one of his work colleagues, who then became like a family friend, I became friends with his son, the son of another metallurgist, and he introduced me to bands. Yeah.
All right. And so
I grew up I also moved to the Lake Macquarie area and basically the Swan City, Belmont, Blacksmiths. I spent my teen years and the rest of my time in Newcastle. I was living out of Blacksmiths with my family and parents, that is, and that was fantastic for the surf, and a great pub called the Mawson figured in that story because we're the local band, and we started a whole gig with a couple of other local bands. And
well, let's not go too far ahead.
Not too far.
Yeah, let's pull it back a bit and say, so in your school years, when did you actually become musical, or was it after your school years? Let's start there.
Unfortunately, in our generation, a lot of music and arts were in the curriculum. At primary school, there was probably zero. I'm just trying to think. Other than in high school, we used to listen to music. I think they had a music class and they play.
I mean, what were you into therefore as a teenager at school? What music were you listening to? What was your favourite?
At school, not much. I was going to give an example. At school, they would play the bolero. Ravel's Bolero, while at home I was later on at least, I was listening to Beck's Bolero because, I was really into the early rock music, my teen years, early teens.
When you say early rock music, what are you talking? In late 60s?
No, early 60s surf guitar music, which is what I sort of have regressed to now. No, I always loved that instrumental music and guitars and whatever, and then the Beatles sort of come on. I was only 12 when the Beatles sort of came along. Yeah.
So therefore, at school, it wasn't really where you built up this sort of camaraderie with other people, music or playing music as such.
No, not at my high school. No.
Were you playing guitar at that stage?
Yeah. I was supposed to get a banjo for my 10th birthday.
Yeah.
And my father had found this old banjo that he was going to get guys in the workshop to deal with, to fix up and put the skin on it and do all this, And he came, when my birthday came around, my 10th birthday came around, there was a bigger cardboard box with a brand new guitar in it, acoustic guitar, obviously, and a book that said "Learn Guitar in 5 minutes."
Oh, really? That's from the back of the comics, was it? The back of the comic book. Remember, you used to get the become a scientist in 10 easy steps.
Yeah, well, apparently I was going to be an accomplished guitarist at the age of 10 years and 5 minutes. There you go.
I gotcha. So therefore, from that age, that's where you start playing, guitar.
I did, yeah.
And getting into it. So therefore, nothing's really happened around school. So you get out of school. Do you go to university?
I did go to university. I'm an architect, so I studied architecture at Newcastle University.
Okay, so is it during that period?
That's when the bands sort of all started, and even the architects we had our own band at the uni. That was sort of a bit of an amateurish thing. But at the same time, I had as I said, a family friend who is my age who invited me to play with his band that included Jim Neal, the other in Daniel, the other mainstay of Daniel is Jim Neal.
Yeah.
And so...
if you go back, I'll just cut in there. If you go back to a lot of the bands around the Daniel era, and let's call that 70 to 80, okay,
yeah.
when you're really formulating your genre, your feel, who you are. And a lot of bands formed out of university days. There is no doubt every time I talk to someone, it all happened at uni. That's where that creative spirit came out and there was so much more creativity. I personally don't think that happens as much today. It's a very impersonal place to be. I mean, when I'm up with you in age bracket, when we were at university, I mean, every Friday, because there was the very strong union membership going on and the student bodies, we had music on in our halls every Friday free of charge. Now, they would be your mainstay bands. I mean, they would be your big bands would be in there. And and it fostered all that creativity and whether it be the flower power and then later, the blues and whatever it will be. But you got that sense that you had to be creative, and it definitely doesn't exist now, but that's because the whole system, has totally, it hasn't become insular. Yeah. It's moved out. And they don't actually congregate around uni. So we had this really lucky period, I think, within that era that we were able to congregate with people of similar interests, and whether it be music or other things, and cultivate that. And that's how a lot of our bands, when I talk to them, have formed. And obviously that's how you guys met, yeah?
We didn't meet, no. The band that preceded Daniel was, which did have Tim Neal in it, as mentioned. That wasn't called Daniel, and none of those guys were at university. But I was, and yes, we used to play at the Union dues on Saturday night. We would be sometimes, or even half the time, we'd be the support band to a bigger band from Sydney. But I tell you, in Newcastle, and it was the same through the 80s and 90s, although I didn't live there then. I lived there in the mid-70s. Always lots of gigs in Newcastle. It was always a great place for gigs. And even in the Melbourne days when we were playing down in Melbourne, we would travel up the coast, play maybe a gig up the coast, up to Hume, play somewhere maybe in Canberra or Wagga or somewhere like that.
Yeah, Albury.
And invariably there'd be one gig in Sydney. We'd probably get cancelled, but we'd play up in Newcastle where we had a big following. We got a few nights up there, and that was it. Yeah.
So we got the university days and whatever, and that's precursor to Daniel. So therefore, how does Daniel come about?
Well, the band before it was called Delta. Yeah. And that was in that 72, 73, and it all folded. I took a sort of a gig I was still studying, obviously. Took a gig playing in another venue in Newcastle that became part of the circuit later on, was the Ambassador Club. A lot of bands played that in the 80s, and I was like in one of the resident bands there, the early band, the resident band, or the early bands, resident bands. And what had happened is the original guys, Jim had formed a band with a couple of other people and called it Daniel. Right. And so they ended up coming in and doing a residency there as well, so I joined them. So it was almost the original band back together, but it wasn't. It was a couple of the original players from the previous band, So that's when Daniel started in 1974. In 75 years.
So did Daniel have a following, or as a resident band, it had a venue that just had people rocking in? Yeah,
no, the bands played there. Well, no, people didn't mind hearing the same band every week or every night. Yeah. But then the venue itself and also our band started playing that, and we used to play. Also, a regular gig that became a real classic was the Mawson Hotel in Caves Beach, and the famous Swansea Workers Club. That was another good gig. There were lots of gigs that then, in the late 70s, became part of the circuit for all the big Australian bands.
So let's strip it back a bit to what Daniel was, and what genre were you playing then, and what were you guys listening to? What was your flavour?
Yeah, well, in 73, 74, when the precursor, I say the band, the precursor to that, we used to play all sorts of music from, we used to play a bit of the Pink Floyd. It was all covers. And we used to do a lot of, when Daniel started, we used to do a lot of soul stuff from that period. Stevie Wonder and Johnny Hathaway, Marvin Gaye, all that sort of stuff, which Jim Neal was very good at with the vocals and everything. And in fact, if I think back when we first played in the band called Delta, it was all Creedence Clearwater and Van Morrison.
Well, who were essentially the biggest band in the world in 1970, Creedence.
Sorry?
I said essentially only a couple of years prior, Creedence were the biggest band in the world. So it was... this was earlier in 1971. Yeah. And so that formed the basis of it. And I didn't really take a big part in the lead vocals until I branched out on my own just before Daniel got together, and then started to be part of the vocal setup with Daniel then. So who became the mainstay writers for Daniel?
The writers, I was the main writer.
Yeah. Okay.
Of the music.
So if you were the main writer, what was the genre that you were thinking of? Because Daniel, let me first start with, for the audience, to say, well, what do I think Daniel likes? Because I'm a punter like anybody else, and I knew Daniel from a long, long time ago. I didn't discover you guys later. I discovered the vinyl a long time ago and had a listen and thought, wow, it's an Australiana sound, but with that real American slick musicianship. Yeah. And it was really kind of weird, and I thought, should they be in Australia or should they be in America? And so that's what I got across, and really well-crafted songs. This was not a pub rock band. Essentially, you weren't a pub rock band.
No, that's right.
So now you tell me what you think you were, and what you were trying to push out to your audience.
Well, the Steely Dan thing was very big, and I was already playing Steely Dan material on my own in my own little band before I joined Daniel, and they were already playing some Steely Dan material. Yeah. And the other big influence, another American band, was Little Feat. We used to do a lot of this stuff, and we just loved the sort of the R&B kind of background to what they did, the beat, and just really crafted songs. And obviously Steely Dan had all the jazz chops that we kind of aspired to a little bit, but we didn't play full on the floor beat on the drums, so we couldn't call ourselves a full-on rock band in that way, but we were just mixing it with all the bands of the 8s, early and late 70s.
So, how does the band start to develop from there, where it becomes a real band of Daniel? And let's say you probably do some covers for a while, and then you start pushing the covers out, and you writing all your material, and you're aspiring to be signed by a label, right? So, where are we heading?
Well, just to qualify, we never got rid of covers. We would always do covers through to the when we released our album. We had plenty of original material, but we would always do at a full gig, not just a showcase gig or something. We would do a lot of covers. Yeah. And in fact, in recent years, when we've had a reunion of the band of such, or sort of reunion, at least Jim and I being involved, and Paul Trimble was involved. I can remember because I saw the set list that we played. We played a half a dozen songs, and 3 were originals from the album, and the other 3 where there was just to show our influence was 1 Steely Dan, 1 Little Feat, and 1 Stevie Wonder.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So how do you head towards trying to get a record deal?
We got the record deal with Image Records, and
Who had Kevin Borich at the time, if I remember correctly?
No, we never did. No, I think Mike Rudd coached Ariel, or even Ariel was on Image.
All right.
And Mike was sort of he became our mentor, then when Ariel folded, I think that was the last sort of band while we were still going at least, and he took out sort of management and representing us and producing. We produced that as single.
Yeah.
We got a single deal, like whatever deal we got, I can't remember. We did a deal and released a song called Are You Listening?
Yeah.
And it got a fair amount of airplay in places in the regional Australia and obviously in Newcastle, where we were from. And I think Image decided to give us the chance to do an album. And in the meantime, I think they were a bit worried that the album wasn't going to go anywhere, I remember. And then we got picked up by Yamaha. I don't know if you know the story.
No.
So Rose Music
yes,
Australia.
I know Rose
Music. Yeah, they were looking for an unsigned band who they could get to promote what was their new kind of pro instruments. And I tell you that they're a great music company now in terms of musical instruments, but back then they didn't really have much of a name. And so they wanted us to show off their guitars, which, became pretty popular and sell for a lot of money now. And drums and the electronic piano that was like a miniature grand piano, or miniature upright piano, I suppose.
Yeah.
That was
a very famous instrument, that piano.
Yeah. So we had all of that here, and the PA, a whole thing, and we were kind of sponsored by Yamaha. And to that effect, I think that's why we got onto the bill at the Nightmoves concert.
Right.
Through the Yamaha sponsorship.
Yeah.
We got onto the bill there.
But were you signed yet officially to do an album, or the album had...
Oh, we'd already released the album.
Right.
We were signed to do the album, but there was a bit of hesitation on Image, and then when Yamaha came, they got behind it, and that really helped the sort of the energy of the whole thing, and so we went and made the album. It was nicely produced by Mike, and also he used to have a couple of names escape me, but a guy who did some string instruments that I worked with, and we had guys doing brass parts and a few brass arrangements too.
Well, tell me a little bit about Bon Voyage Australia. What is that song about?
That was the song that, because this was late in the piece, I think that's my song. I was getting a bit disillusioned with trying to do it. I talked to other newsdays in Melbourne, in other bands. I remember I was good mates with Glenn Mason. I used to talk about just getting off and going off to the US and trying to find something there. I don't know. It's a bit sort of cynical, I guess, the lyrics. But
well, another one I want to know about is Do the White Man. What is that song about?
Yeah, I think people take that. It's like I'm not sure what the correct term for that sort of thing is, but it's a definite dig at the white man and the history of the white man. Particularly, it mentions Queensland, I think, in it, and just the way that, particularly in Australia, which is everywhere, a white man get a lot further in the world than a black man.
Yeah, you have to be very careful what you say today, don't you?
Yeah, I don't think that song would be. I think that song is quite clear that if you listen to all the verses, you've got to hear the turnaround in the verse, and it's the turnaround that's what it's really about, and it's definitely an anti-racist sort of.
I suppose it was written during the Joe Bajelka Peterson days.
That's right. I think there's a reference in one of the verses
to Big Joe. And just the last one I want to ask you about is Last Night in the City, because that's the title of the album.
Yeah, that's Jim Neal's song, and I guess we're all originally from, as you know, Newcastle. He grew up in the Wallsend area too. But Sydney was always Melbourne was always the big smoke, and I guess we listened to lots of sort of records and lyrics about urban music and American urban music and whatever. And I think that's what grabbed his attention, was just Last Night in the City was just in there. And he wrote a really nice full song that was I think that and Sad Sad Day are the two songs on that whole record that I'm proud of,
Yeah.
Well,
what?
You know,
so what? So you're out touring Last Night in the City, and promoting it. And what's happening? You're not getting another album deal offered, and are things falling apart? What's happening with Daniel?
Yeah, I don't know the length of time involved, but what we were struggling to make money. Getting our roadies seemed to. At the end of the week, the roadies seemed to get more money than we did, but we were enjoying it, and we did a lot of sort of promotion for Yamaha. We would go to music stores and do little, workshops or whatever for gear. And we did a tour of we were promoting the album. We'd go to Adelaide and all, and it was fantastic. We got great reception in lots of places outside the big cities, Sydney and Melbourne. In Adelaide, and we'd go to Warrnambool, we'd go to Geelong, we'd go to Newcastle, obviously, as I mentioned, Wagga and those places. But we're always, great, particularly the surf sort of places where, I don't know, there's a bit more, you go and play down at Lawn for a bit longer. It's just an amazing, and people knew us, because we'd played before.
So were you headlining at that stage and filling the venues?
We'd headline at those places, It was only really the support gigs we did were always, I don't know what called the Fern Tree Gully Hotel or Bombay something. Yeah.
Bombay Rock and whatever. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we also headlined once at the Eureka Hotel in Geelong, and we were waiting to do our set, and Paul Trimble, the guitarist, came upstairs to where we were all hanging out and said, "You got to hear these guys who were playing before us, right?"
Yeah.
He said, "I was down," and we come down just in time to hear Ian Moss doing Georgia, and it was Culture. And we didn't even know who they were, what they were. And,
well, look, I've seen a lot of that with AC/DC too. As a young lad, I'd be out seeing whether it be Skyhook, someone else, and AC/DC supporting them. It's always the way. So tell me, what we did, we then released Last Night in the City 2. So you obviously went back into the studio and you were recording. And was that under Image or was that on your own steam?
No, that was Image probably paid for the sessions. I never really thought about that. We wouldn't have had the money to do the sessions.
Yeah.
But the 2 was never a released album. It was something that I put together from all of the takes. Sorry, not the outtakes, but the songs that we were working on, some of which were really good, and unfortunately the quality of them on those tapes was never really up to speed, and in fact, out of all those tapes that we put together for Laneway, the best one was the best thing is really, I tell people to listen to the thing that I've tagged as Last Night Live, which was the songs we played at Palace Hotel, is it? The Palace.
The Palace nightclub. Yeah, the Palace nightclub.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we used to know it. I mean, it had an 1,800 capacity, so it was a big venue, right?
Yeah, no, it was fantastic, and that was the band. It was fairly well recorded, but it was the band at its height in terms of tightness and playability and whatever. So we just really nailed the songs off the album, and then also did some newer ones which were written with a guy called Jose McLaughlin, who he was the keyboard player, who joined us very late in the piece when we finished the album. He didn't play on the album, but he ended up playing on all the gigs post then, and some of the recordings that we did in the studio at demos.
Yeah, gotcha. So what happens then? The band obviously
we just tour.
Pettering out, or was it a firm decision to go, look, we're going to stop?
Yeah, I bought a straw that broke the back.
Yeah.
We did a tour of Tasmania. Now, again, not a lot of bands used to go down to Tasmania, but we went down because Yamaha wanted us to go there and play a few of the pubs and whatever, and then go to the music stores in, I don't know, Launceston and in Hobart, whatever. So we did, I can't think how long it was, but it was a bit of a tour, And even though we had their financial support to do it, it still ended up costing us a lot of money, and we really just looked at it at the end and said, we're just not making any money out of this, and people were just getting a bit fed up. And
What age bracket are we talking?
I was 26. Yeah.
Right.
I turned 27 the following year because that's when I headed off overseas and ended up living overseas for the next 10 years or so.
Well, you know,
I'd been at university. I've been playing in bands. It was like being married. After you finish university, then I didn't work as an architect. I worked in the band full time, and I just thought, well, now it's time to see the world. And I think, it was a lot of really good musical fun playing in the band. So there wasn't any big sort of clashes of personalities.
Yeah.
So much as we just couldn't, weren't making a living.
So what did the
guys had children?
Did any of the guys go on to any other bands after that?
Okay, well, starting with Neil, he, as I said, because he was the man that wrote Last Night in the City, so he virtually moved straight back to Newcastle. And other guys, or the original four-piece band, that is, was Dave Stewart and Paul Trimble. Paul Trimble stayed on and was part of Loose Trousers, I think they were called. I don't know if you remember them.
Was it Loose Tram or Loose Trousers?
Loose Trousers.
Yeah, I do remember them, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
On posters,
and the guy who was the mainstay of that, which Paul became very close with, was Richard Hauser, who a lot of musicians know him. I didn't know him myself, because I wasn't in Melbourne at that time by then. But he passed away a couple of years ago. And
he was in a band called The Ritz.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
And then so he must have also had a band called Loose Trousers, and he formed that with.
Yeah, that was after The Ritz. The Ritz were prior, I think, and then Loose Trousers. But anyway, Richard passed away.
And then Dave Stewart, the drummer, fairly quickly formed or joined the band Stockley C and Mason.
Yeah, fantastic band.
Yeah.
And enjoyed that movie that Stockley C and Mason have made back then, which was quite funny in a lot of parts, but it got some great live footage of the band playing, and very lucky to have that, and that band should have continued on, there is no doubt about
it. Yeah. Well, they, because as you may know, Dave Stewart passed away about a month ago.
Yes.
And I think it was CMC put a few things up, including a YouTube clip of them playing at some venue and playing one of their songs. I can't remember what the song was, but it was just, they sounded fantastic.
Well, what about you? What about yourself? I mean,
well, the other guy that was in Stockley C Mason was the bass player.
Yeah.
A guy called Jeff Rosenberg.
Yes, Jeff Rosenberg. Yeah.
They were a bit like Daniel. We came down from Newcastle to make it big in the world of music in Melbourne, which was the only place to get to back then. And he came from Canberra with a hot air band. And since then, he lived in Sydney since the late 80s, I think, and he's been living out in the Blue Mountains, Western Sydney. Right. But I still keep in touch with him, and we played a couple of gigs together as well.
Yeah. Did you go to any other bands after Daniel?
No. After that, I went and headed off to the United States just on a little trip that turned into me getting a job in the design business, getting a green card, and staying there.
Wow,
and,
that's a treat.
I used to play solo
over in the States. Yeah. That's fantastic.
I used to did a bit of it in Chicago. Chicago was the first place I went to because my girlfriend, or now wife, she got a job with one of the consulates, so I just hung out. I wasn't supposed to work, but I got all sorts of jobs playing, and even though I wasn't allowed to work, I got hired as a paid busker for the city of Chicago one summer because they were hiring. They couldn't, busking was illegal, so they said, well, it's not illegal if we hire them, and they want to put people on the street playing music.
Right.
So that was the easiest way, was just to pay them. So I hated busking, but I never did it really. But I I got the job with a bunch of other people. It was fantastic because there were other people, and we became a bit of there was a bit of a camaraderie amongst it all, including,
amongst the buskers, yeah.
Yeah, well, sometimes I'd hate where I was, and I'd go around and join. You had a little sign and everything, and I'd go and join them. And, there was a couple of the black guys who I'd never been to the south side of Chicago. This is in 1970 and 1980.
Is that the black side, the south side?
Yeah, well, it is. Well, it is still, but it's all blended now.
Yeah.
But back in the other side, I even wrote a song called North Side, South Side. I was in Chicago because it was such a distinct difference. And so we went out to one of the nightclubs, music venues on the south side and whatever. So it was fantastic. And I wasn't there very long, but then I went to San Francisco, where I really started in a good day job of that involved design. I graduated.
I mean, obviously, you could get to go to the Fillmore on any occasion, being in San Francisco.
Fillmore wasn't a go then.
Wasn't it?
The Warfield in downtown San Francisco. The Warfield was the venue. Right. Venues in San Francisco. The Kabuki Theatre in Japantown was. We were talking about recently. I saw The Cure there, one concert, and I saw Men at Work there on one concert.
So you're in San Francisco now, working in the graphics industry, yeah?
In design.
Design. Okay. So you're over there working. How long do you stay over there working for?
This was from 1980 through to the end of 85.
Right.
And I also I put a band together.
Yeah.
And then joined another band. We were called Kiss the Bride. Now, we have a lot of music that we recorded that time. The two guys, the keyboard player and the drummer, ran a little studio. And so all we did for most of it, we didn't play live that much, but we would just record my songs. And some of them were pretty good songs. Never great recordings.
Right.
But also the two guys that I played with and still friends with formed a company called DigiDesign. After I left, DigiDesign, which invented Pro Tools, and they got a Grammy and an Oscar.
So what are they? They're worth about $2 billion each now, aren't they?
No, I think they sold it for. I think they might got 100 million each.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I got it wrong. Not $1 billion; it was 100 million. Oh, God.
Or between them, I don't know, but it was pretty big. We're talking early 90s was when they sold to the Avid, is it?
Avid Systems, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They sold to them. Peter, the drummer, who was really the brains behind the business in terms of business-wise, he went on to front many other things on the board. He was part of, is it Line 7, Line 6, what's it called? Anyhow, instruments, professional instrument stuff. When we met and we were playing in the band, he was a copywriter for, because that's what he studied. He studied writing, in English and stuff at university.
Yeah.
He was a copywriter for Dolby, writing their manuals.
Oh, yeah, Dolby Systems.
Yeah, now he's the chairman.
So what happens at mid-80s, you come back home, but you've got a green card, and having a green card, do you have that for life, or do you have it for a period of time?
No, and I didn't come home either. I decided it was time to see a bit more of the world, because basically I left 79 to go and build, and all I got to was, the US. And that was about it.
Yeah.
So I decided to come back to Australia, see my parents, who would hang out for a few months and then go on to Europe and UK. And I ended up in London. I was able to work in London. So
and this is with your wife, yeah?
Yeah. Yep. And she, I got a job. I ended up working for the company that I worked for in San Francisco, sort of an international design company who had an office in London. So I went there and worked for them and stayed for a couple of years. I then did an interim thing because the guys I met through one of the women I worked with, and they were a band called The Fat Lady Sings. So all from Dublin. Good. The guy is called Nick Kelly. He still makes music, good music. So I ended up playing guitar and doing backup vocals with his band.
So that's in that 85 to 90 period, yeah?
That's not yet. That's right.
Yeah. So what happens then at 90? You're coming back to Australia?
Yeah, I know. I came back 89. We were back in Sydney. Yeah.
Yep, gotcha. And that's where you've been ever since, yes?
I have, yes. Yeah, well, I had another little story overseas, nothing musical involved. It was to do with some architectural work.
So tell me, what I like to ask is in circumstances like this where you've had the album, yes, we've put out the other 2 albums because you've found all the recordings, but you've essentially not put anything else out. Nobody would know who Roger Pyke is because you've never put anything out. But when we talk over that period, you were quite consistent in playing for the next 10 years after that.
Yeah, I think I had a quieter time back here. I'll tell you, when I got back here, I contacted Glenn Mason, who I mentioned before.
Yeah, I know Glenn very well.
He was a colleague because and a friend through Mike and Ariel. We were sort of soulmates on the circuit. And when I got back to Sydney, I contacted him because he lived in Sydney then, as did Nigel Macara, the drummer.
Yeah.
As did Harvey Mason, the guitar player.
Yeah.
They were all playing in a band. I don't think they had a name because I came up with a name later on, I think. But we started, they were already rehearsing, and I talked to Glenn, and Glenn said, oh, we've already got 2 guitarists. And I said, oh, you'd use a third one, come on. And so he said, yeah, why not? So I joined them, and I'd sing some of the songs lead, and we do lots of harmonies, and Glenn's a fabulous singer.
Yeah.
And Harvey was a very great guitar player, so and Nigel on drums, and another guy called goodness, name escapes me. He was at Adelaide Way now. He didn't have much of a background in the band, I don't think. And we played a couple of gigs at the Bridge Hotel in Rozelle.
Yeah.
It's a fairly well-known venue.
Yeah, well.
We played a couple of gigs there, and I don't know, everybody had so much sort of other distractions of work and so forth. Glenn and Harvey were working for Fender, Australia.
Yeah, I know well, yes. Always
and I know
a lot of amps.
Yeah, well, I know the people who used to own Fender, the family, very well. They're family friends in Sydney here. The O'Loughlin's,
No, I don't know them, but, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's right. They anyhow, there was sort of a small world connection.
So it all fell apart there. That didn't go too long.
Yeah, it didn't. I think there was just not, and we weren't doing original music. It was just all cover tunes.
Yeah. And of course, you've got have you got a family by this stage?
Yeah, and I said I would, to get to Saturday night, and I have to go out to a gig, having worked all week as well, trying to, make enough money for my 2 daughters that I had by then, So, And I also took a job that got us out of the red, family-wise, by taking a job, and I worked in French Polynesia on a project there with the whole family, with a young family. That was a great experience, but. Not a lot of music except listening to the complex rhythms of some of the Polynesian stuff. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
And so then it's back to Australia and back to normal working life. Yeah. Yeah,
not a lot. A fair amount of sort of reunions with all my muso mates in Newcastle at various gigs and venues and whatever, and then probably not until about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I formed a band with a good friend of mine, and that became the Lost Funkies.
Yes.
A friend here in Sydney, although those recordings under the name Lost Funkies don't involve the rest of the band, as I've probably explained here.
No, but we have put out Lost Funkies, and I must say to the audience that Roger is recording again, and he's trying to withhold from me, but I know he's got recordings that we could actually release, and he's going overseas.
I'm not holding them back; they're all in my head. So
I know. Well, he's going overseas for a while, and then he's coming back, and he's going to record them so we can put them out.
Right. I'm going to do some little fake record meeting, put the tracks, put some ideas together on my computer while I'm doing stuff or whatever. You've given me some inspiration to get on with it.
Well,
get my mojo working.
Well, I think, and we're all moving on in life, you and me, and in our age bracket, and we've got to try and get the creative elements of the music that we've got within ourselves out, and and offer it to the public. And I think because of the digital age, and there's all the downside of the digital age, but there's the upside. And the upside is
fantastic.
Exactly, and it gets to so many more people, and it is truly international. It's no longer about Australia. Who cares just about here?
Right.
It's about international, and
I think the upside for me at least is that it is so easy to create quality recordings. Just with your laptop and a couple of
well, you've proven that with your last release. You definitely proved that with the last release, and it's all achievable.
And where I struggle is, I'll tell you where I struggle is I like to collaborate, because I think if I could pick anybody, any of the bands we just, whether it's Lennon and McCartney or Becker and Fagan, they all work better as a team.
Well, you're not the only one. A lot of our artists that I interview are having that issue that they want to write, they've got all the ideas, but they like to collaborate. They find it difficult to do on their own, and it probably gets back to what's been going on post-pandemic, and obviously during the pandemic, that insular society that's developed where people are on their own and they're going mad because they do want to burst out and be with other people. And I'm getting the same vibe with writing, is that our artists want to be out collaborating, and we are trying to put some of our artists together and get some more music out. Yeah,
beyond the comrade and or getting out of the loneliness thing, it's just that as a kind of an editor of ideas and additions to the ideas. So much better if I don't. All my current recordings use fabulous drum software and samples and whatever. That I'm not interested in trying to create some unique drum bits, but the drummer that I play with in the band, the current band, when we did play, is just a great guy and a great drummer. And I've said to him so many times, we've got to set up the electronic kit and start triggering some good rhythm patterns and that in my studio, because he's even now he couldn't make our rehearsal a week ago because he's away at work overseas. Everybody's got busy lives that. There is the only thing you can do on your own. I can just walk into the studio on my own and say, right, this will do.
Well, there's so much technology out there, and it's developing at a rate of knots, and it's trying to keep up. And I record with people around the world, and then I've had to have someone come in and set up Cubase for me with then Easy Drummer, which is then on top of that, and it's. And then you have 100 drum kits, but then you use your electronic kit to trigger all of that. And, the sounds are fantastic and you get multi-tracks out of it. But it's, wow, what a setup. To try and do it myself, I was going crazy. I just couldn't do it. So I actually had to pay someone to come in and set that all up. Now, it's so much easier. if someone sends me a guide track, I just go bang and I sit down and I record it and I send them the multi-track of the drums. And
so you do you're doing lots of drum parts, are you?
Yeah. So I'm playing with like 3 different people at the moment. So, but the crux of that story is it took us I think 2 years to get to that situation where I had this all set up. It was driving us nuts. It was just too hard. Oh. But now that I've got it set up, I just send them the multi-track, and then they put that in and away they go. And then it's just like being in the studio, and you got every particular drum and you can put whatever effects you want through it and do what you want to do. But it is a mind-bending exercise to get set up because it's all this digital, and by the time you got into one part and you've sorted it, it's moved on to the next. It's upgraded. But it does make it definitely I suppose, accessible, that you can actually go and record yourself and deliver top quality sound, from your own bedroom. And I'm talking to a lot of young bands now too, Roger, about that, where you can do it, and and they're doing it. But all right, well, we'll look forward to more songs from you when you get back. for
no,
for the project called Los
I'm inspired
Funkies.
by your enthusiasm.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and I think if they're there, if you've got those in your mind and you've got tunes, you know, it's an obligation to get them out. I mean, you don't do it just for yourself. That's too egotistical. I mean, it's about sending it out there to an audience and listening to it, you know. And it's definitely the way I think you need to approach it. And so but I wouldn't be saying that if I didn't think the music was up to scratch. But when we got your last recording, wow, we're back to it. You know, it was just fantastic.
Oh.
So
thank you. Yeah.
we'll wait to hear from you again in possibly 3 to 6 months with some new recordings.
That's right. Give me 3 and I'll have something.
Okay.
I'll force myself. I'll just say, you know, I put too much strain on the fact that, for instance, a good example would be if I want to start with an idea, I say, well, here's a nice rhythm. I'll do this rhythm.
Yeah.
And it'll just be the same 4-bar loop or something with the rhythm.
Yeah.
And I think, oh, well, I better vary that rhythm so that I can do something else. And I hesitate to just leave it plain because I think the best thing to do is I could, with recording this way, I could just leave a basic click track almost, do it all, come back and fiddle with the drums later. But I get caught up in the technical side of one part of it, and then there's no inspiration there. You know, you've got to keep the inspiration going. And like if I do stuff while I'm away overseas, there's no way that that's the final tracks anyhow. It's just a couple of ideas, you know, and maybe the vocal and the guitar's on one track anyhow. But you take those ideas and you can just re-record them, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's...
And I would think I don't have a great setup in my studio for vocal recording. I thought, well, why not just do everything with a scratch vocal and then right at the end get it really good, and then just go to a studio and get someone who knows how to record vocals to record the vocal. You know, that's what I think, you know. That's my latest idea.
Yeah, look, you can do that. Although I've got a lot of artists that have just got the right mic and it's no problem at all, and they record it. It's all achievable. But look, we look forward to more music from Roger Pyke, and it's been a pleasure talking to you, Roger. Have a great time overseas, and we will catch up, no doubt, once you come back. Okay?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for all your enthusiasm and support.
It's my pleasure. We wouldn't do it if we didn't like the music.
Okay.
All right.
You're a good man. You're a good man.
Thanks,
you.
Roger. Talk soon. Bye.
See ya.
And there it is, another Laneway Talks.